Welcome back to Inclusive Design 2024, brought to you in partnership with our Platinum supporters, Barrier Break and Intopia, and our Gold supporters, Barrier Break, Infoaxia, and Tetralogical. You can follow us on Mastodon, Blue Sky, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And if you have questions for the presenters, post them using the ID24 hashtag, or you can also use the YouTube, or you can also use, good morning, or you can also use the YouTube chat. We will gather your questions for our Q&A at the end of the session. Now, a reminder that ID24 is a respectful community, and you can find our code of conduct on the Inclusive Design 24 website. Now, I am happy to be joined by my guest host, Wendy Reed. Wendy, over to you.
Thank you. And up next, we have Janaki Konar, who's going to be presenting about switch control in action, enhancing accessibility. Over to you, Janaki.
Thank you, Wendy. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who has joined this talk. My name is Janaki Konar. I'm working in Barrier Break since over 8 years now. I'm also certified IAAP WAS. I'm very happy today to get a chance to talk here about switch control in action, enhancing accessibility. Switch control is very crucial in making technology accessible for diverse users, like people with diverse needs. Helping them interact with different technologies and systems is very important. So before going further and talking about switch control, let's have a quick look on Barrier Break. So Barrier Break is at the forefront on digital accessibility for over 19 years now. We have one of the largest accessibility team, which consists of native technology users. We are certified women-owned business, SOC 2 Type 2 compliant, that shows a dedication towards safeguarding information. We have in-house accessible technology hub. And looking at what are the different topics that we are going to cover in this particular talk. So very firstly, we will look into what exactly is a switch control, a little overview about it. Different user group that gets benefited when switch control is accessible on different devices and system. We will also look into the different action a user perform to control a device. How to add switches and assign action to switches, especially in iOS. We will definitely see how and where to locate switch control device features, etc. in different devices, that is Windows, Android, and Mac. But for today, we will have a little more detail in iOS. Different options and features available in iOS, the different scanning style and mode. And we will also look into the common challenges faced by users and best practice to consider while designing a system, while designing an application or a website. And few more features that is available in different devices. So to get started, so we will have a look at what exactly is a switch control. So even before getting into the technicality of what is a switch control, how it works, a very common example, something that we all definitely know about. So when you enter a room and it is completely dark, the very first action we as a human do is to switch on a light. And to perform this action, what we usually do is we have a button. We just press it to switch the light on. And if we want to switch the light off, we will again press the same button and the switch will be turned off. So this is exactly the same functionality or feature a user does with switch device to interact with the internet, to interact with a different system. So switch control comes in various size, shape, and sensitivity. So a switch device can be a physical button. It could be something to do with your inhaling and exhaling in a tube that is sip and puff device by which a user interact with internet. Switch control helps user perform different action. So for example, just interacting with an internet or a web page, navigating through it, filling up a form, or maybe performing an action. So these all can be done with the help of switch device. So as we do with our traditional old input device, that is touch screen or keyboard, so similar fashion, we can do it with the switch device. Switch control is an adaptive device. It can be customized based on individual needs. So it can be customized based on the sensitivity, or it can be customized based on how much pressure a user can perform in a switch device, or how many presses are required. So that's an overview about switch control. Let's see which are the user group that are benefited the most with the help of switch device. So the very first is user with motor impairment. So any user who have an issue with movement, who has limited mobility, can use a switch device for their daily activities to access a system. Apart from user with motor impairment, it also benefits user with learning differences. So a person with autism, a person who finds it difficult to perform complex gestures or use multiple switches in a keyboard can definitely use a switch device because that makes it simple to use. How to control a switch and what are the actions that a user needs to perform? So switch comes in a various shape, size, and different actions can be done. So a user can blink to perform an action. A user can press a big, huge button to again perform an action like moving on a page or selecting a particular element. A user can use sip and puff as a device. So this depends on inhaling and exhaling of the user. Depending on the airflow, they can assign different actions to it. A user who find it difficult to move their hands, foot, they can definitely use a switch as attached to their wheelchair cushion or maybe a pillow, and they can yet use a switch device. A switch device like a press button, a big, huge, or jelly buttons. So this can be kept in their hands, foot, or maybe shoulder, or wherever the user is comfortable using it. Even a user who have minimal movements can use a switch device. Definitely, there are different switch devices which requires less pressure. Even with the softest touch, it will detect the action that needs to be performed. So a switch device can be kept under a chin and user can yet perform the action. We also have different features wherein a switch can be controlled via head or even eye gaze. So using a front camera of your mobile phone, we can move our heads or eye and different action can be performed. So for example, if I move towards my right, so it will move my focus to the next element. If I move my head towards left, it will move my focus to the previous element. So all such features or all such actions can be performed using a switch device. So how to add a switch and assign different action. So this is basically focused on an iOS device. So to switch or to turn on a switch control, we have to go under settings screen. Within that, we have accessibility option and we will see a switch control, which can be turned on and off. And the sources of switch controls may differ. So here we have an option of external, screen, and camera. So when we say external, it means a physical device. It can be attached via Bluetooth, it can be connected via Bluetooth or a USB port. screen. Here, we do not need a physical device. We can tap anywhere on the screen and it will take the action. Camera. So an iPhone uses the front-facing camera and it will detect the head movement, and based on the movement assigned action, it will perform. There are few cool features available in switch control. So one of the very commonly used one is recipes. So recipe features allow user to perform repetitive action. So what exactly is a repetitive action? For example, if you are reading an ebook, a very common repetitive action as a user we do is change the page. We move to the next page the moment we complete reading the current page. So this is a repetitive action. Similar to this, if you are very much interested in gaming, there will be certain games wherein we perform repetitive action. Maybe clicking in a particular area or maybe selecting a particular tool. So these are nothing but repetitive action. So using recipe, we can define this, and with a single click, we can perform this action multiple times. Instead of navigating the entire page and then finding the tool and then activating it. Looking into more options available in a switch control. Auto scanning time. So if we have auto scan turned on, so we can set different time as per user need to scan the screen. Pause on first item. So this is something that I really like, because when I started auto scan, I didn't realize when the focus moved from the first item. And what if I really had to click on the first item? So wait till the loop ends and it again starts from the first item. So it's very beneficial if you're using switch control for the very first time, and chances that you want to click on the first item, keep the pause on first item enabled. Loops. So a auto scan or a scanning start from the very start and it goes to the last element. As per loop, it will allow a user to have multiple numbers of loops. So you can have 2 loops, 4 loops, depending on how you want to use it. So loop is nothing but how much time the scan should cycle back. Move, repeat, allow us to move to the next item with a delay. Long press, this is again a very beneficial feature available. Even if you're using a single switch, multiple switch, you can multiply the numbers of action that you can perform with a long press. So if you have a single switch, it performs a single action. But with a long press, you can add a secondary action to it. So if a single switch allows you to move to next item, a long press may allow you to jump to somewhere else, maybe to your home screen, or maybe it opens a notification bar. It totally depends on what action we have selected to do with long press. We have focus item after tap. So it allows us to decide where the focus should go after a user has tapped on an item. Tab behavior. So it has multiple features under tab behavior. You can select either default, tab, or always tab. So it depends what we have selected and how it has to behave. There are pretty more options available within iOS for switch control. We have hold duration at how long a user needs to hold the button. Ignore repeats. So this is when a user press multiple switch accidentally. So it will ignore that action. Sound effect speech. This is again a very good features within iOS control. With speech, whenever this any item has switch focus, it will read aloud. Whatever text is present, it will read for the user. So user who, apart from just navigating using a switch, they also want to hear where the focus is. A speech should be enabled. Sound effect will produce different sounds depending on the actions. With menu item, we can select what we need to see in the scanner menu and in which order. Group item is again very beneficial. It helps to faster the navigation. We will definitely see how group item works, but it definitely helps to navigate faster. Large cursor, as switch, while we are navigating on the screen, it shows a highlighter around the element it has focus. So if we want to increase the size of the highlighter, we can use large cursor and cursor color. There are few colors, it's limited, but obviously we can decide which color we want to opt for. So by default, it is on blue, but we can change it to red, green, yellow, or orange. So those were features available in a switch device. So how does a switch work? Like how would the scanning happen? How a user will be able to select an element. So there are some scanning style available in a switch. So for the first one, it's an automatic scanning, and we also have step scanning. This scanning style depends and differs depending on the device and the models being used. So in automatic scanning, it's very similar to something that we all know. Maybe if we are hungry and we went to a place which is very famous for sushi. So in a sushi bar, what we exactly do is we sit around this belt wherein all the dishes are placed. We wait till the dish that we want to eat comes in front of us. The moment it is in front of us, we can grab it and we can start eating. So that's a very same style of scanning we do in automatic scanning in switch device. So here, an automatic scanning starts on the screen. We have to wait till the element that we want to interact with receives the focus. The moment the switch device is on the element that we want to interact with, we can use our switch device to interact. That is, a user needs to press tab on the screen, or if they are using a physical device, then they have to press the button to activate the element. The next is a step scanning. So this is a manual scanning basically. So the focus of a switch won't move automatically, but a user need to press the switch device to move from first item to the next item. The moment when the item that a user wants to interact with receive the focus, the user have to use the second switch to select the item. So here, based on the steps, a user at least need 2 switch devices to perform this action. Otherwise, we can use the long press option to select an element rather than using a separate switch. Control mode. So we have definitely gone through what exactly is a scanning. So we know it gets scanned automatically or it can be scanned with manual input. But how exactly it can be controlled? How exactly a switch control can a user do? So there are 2 ways. One is item mode and the second one is a point. So in an item mode, each item on the screen receives focus. In a point mode, there is a horizontal and vertical line that move across the screen and user can select which item to be selected or interacted with. So the first screenshot here shows the item mode. So with the feature of grouping that we had seen previously, instead of each item receiving the focus, a group of items receives focus. It follows rows and column approach. So when we start scanning with item mode, the first row, entire row with 4 application receives the focus. Then it moves to the second row, third row, and in a sequential manner, it will complete scanning all the rows. If a user want to activate clock application on the screen. So the moment the item mode focus is on the second row, user will activate the switch device. Once that is done, it will then move one by one. On each application, it will receive focus. So first it will go to the mail application, then it will move to the clock application. The user can again activate the switch to interact with the clock application. So that's how an item mode works. So in scenarios where in one row there are more than 4 items, or maybe like 6 or 10 items, the moment that row receives focus and user interact with it gets converted into subgroups. So in the first scanning, all the 10 items receive the focus. In the second scanning, the first 5 applications will receive the focus, and next, the last 5 applications will receive the focus. Here again, if a user activates the second group, it will create a subgroup. So now it will receive focus for the first 3 items and then the last 2 items. So based on which group a user activate, it then starts receiving focus on each application. As the group has very minimal application, that is 3 and 2, so it will receive focus on individual applications. This helps user to reach faster on the application that they want to activate rather than moving on individual items. In point mode, the moment we start scanning, we will see a vertical line appear on the screen. So the color of the line again depends on which cursor color we have selected. So in this screenshot, we can see the color blue. The vertical line starts moving from left of the screen to your right of the screen. Whenever this line is on top of the application that we want to select, user have to press the switch to stop the vertical line on top of that application. The moment we select the vertical line, we will see a horizontal line appear on the screen. This will start from the top of the screen and move the screen. These lines keep on moving till the user gives an input. Application that we want to select, the user can give an input, that is by pressing a switch control, and depending on the coordinates and depending on where the horizontal and the vertical line meets, that element will get activated. So in this screenshot, we can see the line is moving, the horizontal line is moving, but it looks like we are going to activate the App Store. So the moment the horizontal line is stopped on the App Store, it will get activated. Depending on the element that we want to interact, or we stop the point mode and item mode, it will open up a scanner menu. A scanner menu have global options like scrolling up, down, or moving to home, or activating recipes, as well as depending on the item that we have selected, we will find the features available in the scanner menu. So that's how the switch control modes are. Again, it may differ depending on devices. So here is a demo of iOS. So we are already in the settings screens. You will see that we have moved into accessibility screen and switch control is turned up. We have an important notification dialog present, and with the help of gliding cursor or a point mode, we selected on the cancel button. So here in the demo, we did see that the horizontal bar and the vertical bar is aligned in a way that it is top on a top of cancel button, and then using the screen tab, we selected the cancel button. Locating switch control in different devices like Windows, Mac, Android. So in Android, it's a feature known as switch access. If it is already not present in the mobile device, we can download it using the Play Store. Once it is done, we can find the switch access within setting accessibility, and we will have switch access control, which can be enabled and disabled from the screen. When we are using it for the first time, we have to select which switch we exactly want to use. So even in Android, we have an external, which can be connected via USB or Bluetooth. We also have screen as well as camera. So here with camera, we can use our facial expressions to create an action. So for example, with a smile, we can open an application. With looking into left side, we can go back to a screen. Looking into right side, we can open a notification bar or maybe an overview. So this can be done using an Android switch access. With Windows, we can go into setting, ease of access. Within that, we will find switch access, which can be toggled to turn on and off. Windows also provide different features like on-screen keyboard that can be used as a switch. Over here, we will find an option wherein we just have to use a key from our physical keyboard or maybe from switch. And we can yet use the entire keys present in the on-screen keyboard. We will again have a look on how it works exactly. Moving on to Mac OS, within switch control that can be found in system preference and accessibility, we can enable the switch control and disable it. In Mac OS, switch like the one that we have gone through in iPhone is very similar. You will find the scanner menu, you will have the gliding cursor, tab or point mode, item mode available. So here's a demo of how switch access works in Android. In the iOS, we have seen that we were using the switch as a screen, that is to tab on the screen and the action performs. Here we have used a camera as a switch and providing a different expressions, we have performed an action. So here we are already in a help screen, which we find it under accessibility. So a gliding cursor is activated, and with the help of different expression, that is looking left, right, opening the mouth and smile, we have gone back, clicked on help, open the notification bar and looking into the overview screen. iOS as well provide a option wherein we can assign different action using our sound. We can use different sound which is not very common, like maybe and it goes to home. And similar to this, we can use different sound and assign different action. This totally depends on user how comfortable they are on making this sound repetitively. But this is very helpful when we have to perform a global action like exiting an app or moving to the home screen from wherever you are right now. So those action is very helpful if we directly do it using a sound control. Looking into different challenges that we face while using a switch control. When I was exploring this, the very big challenge that I found is typing speed. Even writing a smallest word like hello made me do so many mistakes and taking at least more than a minute to complete single word. So how exactly it's create a problem, especially for the user who have just started using Switch. So while typing using a Switch device, I randomly made a mistake, like I have, instead of using or instead of stopping at H, I clicked or I pressed the switch when the focus was on J character. This added additional step for writing a keyword because I have to navigate to the delete or the backspace key, remove the unwanted or mistakenly typed character, then write what I exactly wanted to write. So this literally took me more than the required time to complete a single word. I couldn't imagine of writing a whole essay or maybe a whole paragraph using a switch as not being a native switch user. But definitely there needs to be some kind of approach which we can make better and help increasing the typing speed. Using a complex gesture on a device, like for moving slides on a carousel or any functionality with a complex gesture makes it difficult for user to perform that functionality or interact with the functionality. While I was facing challenges in typing a word, think of a situation wherein we have to fill up a form. Writing or filling up a form almost 80%, and then we are directly thrown out of the website with an error saying that you have exceeded the time limit. Imagine the struggle that we have to again log in, we have to again start filling the form from the very first, and with a constant fear that this time we have to complete it before the time limit. It is a challenge because, as we know, switch device is majorly used by user with motor impairment as well as user with learning difficulties. So having a time limit on a system, on a website to complete a very crucial form is definitely going to be a challenge for the users. A user may have a fixed setting of device. They may definitely set a device in a distance wherein they can have their system, they can have their switch device around them and use. In this scenario, having a very important text written in a small font is going to be very difficult for the user to read it. Apart from a user using a switch or a setting wherein the device is far, there are situations where we have seen an application as well as in website, the text is in a very small size and we have to zoom in our screen, especially when it is a mobile device, we have to zoom in our screen to read it. So it becomes a very challenging situation for people having a device in distance and try to read this. Switch definitely provide a feature of reading. Like whenever the focus is on the text, it will read it aloud. But again, it totally depends on how the setting or which device a user is using. So it's by default beneficial to have a larger text size, especially for all the important content. Having a repetitive section on a page. It's not new to know that websites have many elements, especially in the header area, which is repetitive. We as a user definitely explore this, but maybe once or twice. Not in every internal page of the website, we are going to explore this element. But think of a situation, these sections are present at the header part, and there is no way a user can skip this. There is no skip link or there is no other links provided to directly move to the main section of the page. A switch user will have to interact, will have to navigate through all this repetitive section to reach to the main page of the website. It is a big struggle. It is definitely time consuming, and it is something they would happily ignore, happily skip because they would have explored it maybe once or twice already. So having repetitive content at the start and important content in the main section without a skip link is something the user may not want to go ahead and they switch to a different website where it is more accessible, where they can directly jump to the content they are looking for. This is a similar condition where we have hidden element receiving focus. So the element, especially like menu items, which are not in display, however, it receives focus. Again, it will lead a user to navigate all those elements and then reach to the main content. At time, it also confuses user there where exactly the focus is going. Are they missing out something important? Having a focus management incorrectly done is a different challenge, as user will keep guessing where the focus will go next and how would they easily reach to the content they were looking for. Having an inaccessible element will also a challenging part, as some switch or depending on the settings, they may not be able to interact with this element properly, or they may not be able to get the information of this element correctly. Same goes for inconsistent layout. If at every page or randomly, if the layout is updated, if the layout is changed from the rest of the website template, it is going to be confusing for the user. They have to again look for the different actions, the different interactive element they want to interact with. So they have to find it across the page and then interact with it. So these are the different challenges faced, and it is not very limited to this. Depending on the settings, depending on the user, there are more challenges that a user can face if the site or if the app is not appropriately coded, or if features are not provided that benefits users. Best practices. What exactly we have to consider while we are creating a site or maybe an application which benefits which users. So very firstly, as we were discussing about repetitive content. So to have a skip link, not only in the header section, but depending on how repetitive content are placed on a website and providing a link to directly skip those and to jump to a next section of the page. This helps in not going over and over again to the repetitive section and directly jump to the section the user really want to interact with. Also to ensure all the key elements to be placed at the top. If there is some special features available, or if there are different element, a key element depending on the site, depending on the application, which a user will definitely interact with, should be placed at the top. As scrolling the page again and again and trying to find the key element becomes a challenge and time consuming process for the users. Typing definitely was a challenge. What could help in increasing the typing speed? A word prediction. So while we are writing something, it will be great if the keywords that are repeating in a paragraph or what are repeating what we are writing is being automatically detected and provided in the word prediction. So for example, if I am writing a blog on images and I'm using the keyword images again and again, so maybe the first time I had to write it, maybe the second time I had to write, but while I am writing it for the third time, so while I have already written I really, it will be helpful if the word prediction gives a suggestion of image directly. And instead of adding all the character, typing all the character, I can select from the word prediction. Similar to this, autocomplete will also be very beneficial while filling up the forms. So instead of typing the information again and again, having an autocomplete do it, it will save the time as well as it will speed up the user's speed to complete a form. Dictation is something that, depending on user how comfortable they are, they can use dictation and they can give a speech input instead of typing. To not have a time limit on a web page. If it is essential, allow user to extend the time limit. The mechanism that is provided to extend this time limit should be accessible. So here, if we take an example of a web page wherein a time limit is necessary, so provide a setting wherein a user can by default extend their time in the very initial stage, or maybe provide a dialogue so that a user can extend the time by interacting with the buttons available in the dialogue. This helps user by filling up the form with sufficient time and obviously not having a fear while filling up this form. Providing alternative for complex gesture. So not forcing the user to use the complex gestures and providing a very simple alternative wherein user can use their switch device and yet function or yet interact with the complex functionality. Ensuring that the element that we are using on a site or application is accessible, having a proper role, value, state to it, as well as focus indicator, ensuring that it is keyboard accessible for the user. As we have already discussed, there is a highlighter of switch device present. So whenever the element receives focus, it will be very much visible, like which element has the focus. But we need to ensure that the element also have a focus indicator defined correctly to avoid any barrier, to avoid any blocker for the user. As user may use different settings, as well as user may use switch device with a combination of different assistive technology. Focus management should be logical, that is a focus order that is defined for element should be from top to bottom and left to right as it is visually available. Not only while navigating, but while interacting with an element. So when we interact with different element, like a button, it opens a dialog, or maybe it takes you to another page. So in this process, whichever is the logical order that the focus should go on the next time, it should be followed and available for the users. So these are the best practice. Again, it is not limited, but these are something that I found during exploring switch device for this. But definitely we can think of more best practices to ensure that element system devices are accessible with switch. So while looking for switch device, there were more options available in different systems. One of which is in iPhone. So within switch control, as we have seen, we can enable the source as screen, external. So there is also a feature of head tracking. This may be available in few devices and not all, but head tracking is a device wherein it tracks your action based on the head movement. So we can already assign which actions or which expression should follow which action. This is done with the help of front camera of your phone, and based on your head movement, the actions are performed. So a head is actually converted like a pointer. It will be visible on the screen, and we can move our head and focus that pointer on the element that we want to interact with. We can adjust the pointer speed. We can assign different facial expressions to perform any action. Again, with head tracking, we can combine the speech sound action as well. So you can give a different sound, and apart from your facial expressions, even the sound will perform different action. So that is something that iPhone has of head tracking feature. In Windows, as we were discussing earlier, Windows has this on-screen keyboard. It works as almost as switch control. This feature, like I have used on-screen keyboard many a time, especially when the physical keyboard has run into some problem. There are some keys that are not working. So on-screen keyboard comes handy to save you from that situation. But this time around, I found that we have an option key from which a dialog appears of option. You have a checkbox of use keyboard keys, and you have a drop down to select from which key you want to interact with. So in this case, I have selected the space bar. So the moment I activate the space bar, my on-screen keyboard gets highlighted with a color. Again, it moves from row to column. Here as well, the navigation is performed using grouping. So we will have a look into it, how it looks. So we have a demo here of our Windows. So here I have a Word file in the backside, and I have a on-screen keyboard in display. So by pressing the option key, the dialog, and activating it, you will see a highlighter in each row. So here I wanted to write the word hello. So when the focus was on the row of H, I selected. Then it was grouped with 3 characters each. And I selected the group wherein the keyword H was present. So same goes the moment I press one character, the focus jumps back to the top and it moves again row-wise. So I have pressed E and L, and now I have word prediction. So I have used the word prediction feature here, and as hello was already present, I selected hello as the word. And you can see in the word file, the word hello is present now. The highlighter or the color of the highlighter can be changed depending on the system color. So this was completely performed using the spacebar key of the physical keyboard. I did not use any other keys in this entire process. So this gets activated only when we activate the option key and then set the keys in the option dialog. So this can also be done with the help of physical switch, but in this case, I thought of using the space bar, that is with the physical keyboard. Apart from this, even in Android, we have different features which can be combined with the switch device. Obviously, there are users who would prefer, apart from navigating the switch using the highlighters, they would like to have the speech feedback as well. So this feature is available on iPhone as well as Android. User can also opt to use different assistive technology like Zoom or maybe VoiceOver, but there needs to be changes made in the setting of both this assistive technology depending on how the user want to interact with or what are the features they want to avail with this two technology combinedly working. It may have its challenges, but again, as the user preference, we can update the or customize the settings. So with this, I hope we have understood about switch control, like how that's performed in different technologies, different system, and how to make sure that it helps the user. So here it's about my link, Twitter and LinkedIn ID. So if there is any questions that you want to share, that you want to write it down, you can use these IDs and you can post your question.
Wow, that was fantastic. Thank you so much, Janky. That was such a great talk. I learned so much. I know that we're short on time, but I wonder if we do have any questions before we wrap up. Wendy?
We absolutely do. There's one awesome question from the audience from Andrew Hick, who's asking, we find it hard to flag switch control issues because the web content accessibility guidelines have no specific criteria for it, unlike keyboard. How do you approach this in your testing and reporting?
So yes, that's a very good question. And to be honest, as WCAG, or it is not mentioned very, very directly about switch control. Not all clients or not all customer would like us to test with switch control. But definitely that does not limit. We can definitely test and we can raise the issue as it is one of the input devices, like a keyboard, like a touch screen. So we can definitely raise an issue stating that with different input devices, a certain functionality cannot be operated.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's great, Janky, so much. Thank you so much. This was a fantastic session, and we are ready to wrap up. So everyone, if you like this session, hit that YouTube like button, and don't forget that you can subscribe to youtube.com/inclusivedesign24 to be kept in the loop for our future events. Inclusive Design 24 is brought to you with thanks to our supporters, Barrier Break, Intopia, Infoaxia, Tetralogical, Intuit, Adrian Roselli, LLC, Assistive Labs, the Law Office of Lamy Feingold, Skyscanner, and Vispero. I need coffee. Inclusive Design 24 will be back at the top of the hour with our next session. So see you then.
Thank you.